Welcome to our channel, where we talk all things true crime. This video is for educational purposes based on public knowledge. We do give our opinions at the end, but please do your own research. We mean no disrespect for any mispronunciation of names or places. Let's get started. Maddie Clifton was a freckle-faced, happy-go-lucky 8-year-old girl that lived in the Lakewood community in Jacksonville, Florida. The Cliftons' life would come crashing down when Maddie didn't return home for dinner after playing outside. Family and friends searched for her for an entire week before her remains were found too close to home. Maddie Clifton was born June 17, 1990, and grew up in Jacksonville, Florida with her parents and older sister Jessie. The year was 1998, and life was simpler then. Maddie often played outside all day until it was dinner time. She had a big heart and always rooted for the underdog. She was very active and was always doing something like playing the piano, pick up basketball, or just tossing around a baseball.
A family from Allentown, Pennsylvania would move in across the street from the Clifton family in 1997. Maddie would befriend the 14-year-old boy named Joshua Earl Patrick Phillips. Josh was born March 17, 1984. Although there was a huge age difference, Josh never gave Maddie's parents any reason to feel uncomfortable or fearful. Josh was quiet, friendly, and somewhat of a recluse. Josh's dad was strict and had lots of rules. The dad was quick to give out harsh punishments and was an abusive alcoholic. Josh and his mother Melissa, who went by Missy, lived in fear.
Maddie's mother Sheila had returned home from voting on November 3, 1998. Maddie was seen hitting golf balls down the street, and then she headed home to round up some more balls. Maddie was told to be home before dinner as she ran off to play. It was dinner time and Maddie hadn't returned home. This wasn't like her. Jessie, who was 11 at the time, went to look for her sister, but Maddie was nowhere to be found.
When Jessie came home and told her family that she could not find Maddie, the panic set in. Maddie had seemingly vanished. They dialed 911 and began searching for her in the dark with flashlights. The neighbors joined in on the search, including the neighbor boy Josh. The search turned into somewhat of a circus in the area. Hundreds of volunteers showed up along with camera crews. Flyers were handed out everywhere. Rewards were offered for any information regarding her disappearance. There was a police presence at the house, and the police worked around the clock. Maddie's disappearance had resonated with the entire Jacksonville community. She could have been anyone's child.
Then on November 10, 1998, Josh's mother Missy noticed a foul odor coming from her son's room. She went in and started picking up his room to figure out where the smell was coming from. Missy noticed a wet spot on the floor next to Josh's waterbed. She thought the bed was leaking and got closer to investigate. She then noticed that the bed frame seemed to be broken. As she lifted up the mattress, shock and horror set in. There she found Maddie's lifeless, partially clothed body. Missy ran out of the house in disbelief to the Cliftons' house across the street. Missy went straight to a police officer and told them what she had found.
Police went to the middle school Josh attended and arrested him that day. Josh would confess to what he had done. But what exactly had he done and why? Josh would tell the police that Maddie had come over to ask him to throw around a baseball. Josh agreed, even though he knew he wasn't allowed to play outside or have friends in the house when his dad wasn't home. As they tossed the baseball back and forth, Josh said he had thrown the ball too hard and it hit Maddie in the head. She began to cry and scream. Panicked, Josh took her into the house so no one would hear her. Maddie continued screaming, so this is when Josh began strangling her to keep her quiet.
Although he claims hitting Maddie with the baseball was an accident, Josh goes on to say that he was afraid that his dad would come home and see that he had had someone in the house, which was against the rules. He also didn't want his dad to see that he had hurt Maddie. He hid Maddie's body under his waterbed, where he would sleep for the next 7 nights. He told himself nothing had happened so many times, he actually began to believe it.
What seemed to be a sad accident was proven otherwise. The dark truth of what actually happened to Maddie would come to light after her autopsy was performed. Maddie had been beaten with a baseball bat, her throat had been slit, and she was stabbed multiple times before being stuffed under the waterbed. The entire Jacksonville community fell to its knees in grief.
Maddie's funeral was held at the Catholic Church on San Jose Boulevard, where she made her first communion. 1,400 people attended the service, while thousands lined the streets outside. A small casket with a cream-colored cloth was placed at the center of the altar, along with an enlarged photo of the little girl with a Kool-Aid-stained smile with a heart-shaped flower arrangement next to it from Maddie's third-grade class.
Just 9 days later, on November 19, 1998, a grand jury returned a first-degree murder charge against Josh Phillips. He would be tried as an adult. State Attorney Harry Shorstein held a news conference and addressed the public. He said, "The citizens of Jacksonville should be assured every appropriate resource in my office will be devoted to make sure Maddie Clifton's murderer is brought to justice. The murder of this little girl has shaken me just as it has the rest of our community."
Josh being tried as an adult became national news. There was so much pretrial publicity on the case that it was moved out of Jacksonville and to Polk County. His trial began July 6, 1999. Before this, Josh had never been in trouble, but Josh's attorney would call no witnesses on the teen's behalf. Just 2 days later, on July 8th, Josh was convicted of first-degree murder. Sentencing took place on August 20th, and Josh received a life sentence without the possibility of parole. Because of his age at the time of his crime, he was too young to be executed by the state. The judge called Josh's actions monstrous.
In 2017, Josh Phillips would receive another trial after the Supreme Court ruled in 2012 that juveniles convicted of murder cannot be subject to a mandatory sentence of life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Evidence was provided that Josh had been a model prisoner working as a paralegal in prison to help other inmates. He participates in Christian religious services, practices meditation and yoga. However, Josh's conviction would be upheld and was resentenced to life sentence. He was eligible for resentencing in 2023, but at this time, no information is available. Josh is almost 40 years old and resides at the Taylor Correctional Institute Annex in Perry, Florida.
So what do we think?
This case is just very sad because I have an 8-year-old and an almost 11-year-old.
So it hits real close to home.
Yes, just because they are really trusting.
Yeah. We were kind of talking before, listening to the story and reading stuff. There were recordings of Josh when he was older. I don't think that the trial itself was recorded.
Yeah.
It sounded like it was an accident that happened, and then it just escalated from there out of, I guess, his fear. You raised the point that it could have possibly been intentional.
Planned out.
And we'll never know because there were no witnesses.
Yeah.
And that's the story that he gave. Although he didn't give the full story of what he did to her, that was found out later in the autopsy.
Because again, if obviously kids play rough, whatever, and I know fear can play a big deal in it, the point where he accidentally hit her, I don't know why you would go from that to, well, beating her.
Strangling her to get her to be quiet.
They said she was beaten with a bat. What part of that would make her be quiet?
Yeah, none of it.
None of it. I don't know. There were other ways to handle it. Yeah, he could have gotten punished or spanked and that would have sucked, but it seems like there's a lot of underlying issues with that kid.
Yeah, because his dad was an abusive alcoholic, allegedly. I'm sure that he was raised in an environment that wasn't friendly towards others.
Yeah.
If it was just an accident, he could have just walked her home. Or as a child, when I was younger and playing with friends and I got hurt, I would be crying, but I'd take off running home.
He knew he wasn't supposed to have kids over. They don't always listen. So I could see that, but if he was that scared of his dad, why would he
even go outside?
Yeah, play. Have her come over. Yeah. And that's a huge age difference.
It is. We talked about this, and although there was nothing that made them uncomfortable or to be fearful of him, it just seems like way too big of an age difference. And, you know, she loved playing sports. She played basketball. She was hitting golf balls down the street, wanted to toss around a baseball. So to me, she kind of seemed like a tomboy. That's at least the term they used in the 90s. I know we don't use it anymore, but she seemed like a tomboy. And so it's kind of like, oh, well, he'll probably play sports with me. So there's that aspect. But also an article that I was reading was saying that anytime she watched movies, she would always feel really bad for the bad people in the movies because they were isolated and something made them be bad. And so
not having friends and stuff like that.
And so they think maybe that's why she befriended him in the first place, is because she felt bad for him because he was awkward, somewhat isolated and quiet.
Yeah, even if an accident happened, it's just crazy that it went from that to like 1,000 real quick. It's also very strange that he then stuffed her under the bed and tried to pretend it didn't happen.
And then slept on the waterbed for 7 days.
Again, that smell, I don't know how you would just ignore that.
Yeah, because if the mother smelt it outside the room.
Yeah, it's a very sad story.
Very sad.
Because he was 14, so he was tried as an adult. I know a lot of people have mixed feelings about that. Even if it started as an accident, he stabbed her multiple times, beat her with a bat. That's extreme.
Yeah.
I don't know if many people can cross that line and not continue to cross it.
When he got his new sentence, because the Supreme Court ruling happened, basically any juvenile that was sentenced to life without parole, he got a new resentencing hearing.
Yeah.
And at that point, there was a doctor of some kind that testified that he's not a threat anymore, because he's been an upright model citizen.
Yes, but he's in a very
prisons.
confined, very strict environment.
Yeah, he is.
You can see where those people would do well in that type of environment because they don't have the opportunities to do that.
Opportunities.
But something else, though, he participated in searching for her.
Yeah.
There's no remorse, there's nothing. That's weird, right?
Yeah, I think it's weird. It's kind of manipulative.
Yeah, and a lot of people that are perpetrators, they do that. They want to relive it and be a part of that. It's very strange.
And they also think it's taking attention away from them. I don't think he was ever even looked at as...
Yeah. But then it would have been weird if he didn't. So I can understand that. But again, as a 14-year-old kid, it just seems very alarming, some of the stuff that he was doing. Not a whole lot on the trial or what he said, or just that he's maintained, that it was an accident.
Yeah, and actually the interview that I saw, so he gave an interview for a news channel or something. He would not talk about the crime at all.
Well, yeah, because he doesn't want to incriminate himself even more. And I'm sure he's been filing appeals.
Yeah, he filed a few appeals before he even got that one after the Supreme Court ruling. Supposedly, he's up for another possible resentencing last year in 2023, but I'm not sure, because when you do paperwork, it takes forever. And that one ruling happened in 2012, and he didn't even get a new resentencing until 2017. So that's a 5-year gap. So who knows?
Wow.
But they're acting like he possibly, if he petitions it and he still has great behavior, I guess, and can prove, if he can demonstrate good behavior and safe behavior, then he could possibly be eligible for parole. He was 14 at the time of the crime. Then the very next year when he was sentenced, he was 15, and now he's almost 40. So he's been in for, 25 years?
It's interesting when you think about it, though, because these people are so used to living this way. It's almost like if you let them out, how are they going to act, though?
If his dad was the way that he was, he kind of lived in an environment like that in the first place.
Yeah.
Like a really controlled, strict environment, and he did that.
So what is he going to do if he got freedom? No restrictions and...
I hate to say this, but the people that he's in jail with are of equal size. You know, because some people just prey on smaller people
at a disadvantage.
Whether it be by age or size or anything. Even the elderly, they prey on elderly people. Sometimes criminals do, because they see them as not being able to fight back as much.
They're easier to overpower, yeah.
Exactly. So he probably can't overpower a ton of men in prison.
They want to go about how he's a model prisoner. Well, so is John Wayne Gacy.
That's true.
Remember, he got out super early. He didn't even serve the 10 years whenever he had offended. He was only there for less than 2 years because he was a model citizen.
So it really proves nothing.
It proves literally nothing.
If you have certain characteristics of
a perpetrator in general.
They have similar characteristics. They will do what they need to do to get what they want. Does that make sense? So it makes sense that he could be a model citizen. So he got his GED.
Yeah.
Then he did some courses online or whatever.
Okay.
And he got his paralegal. I don't know if it's a degree, certificate, or whatever. But he became a paralegal, and he's helping other inmates. But what he's doing is helping them all file their appeals.
Oh, yeah.
There might be somebody in there that shouldn't be, but the chances of that happening, I don't think is that great. I just thought it was interesting that they're like, he's being helpful when he's just trying to find loopholes to get everybody out.
Well, good. He's behaving and being helpful in his new environment. Leave him there.
Yeah, because he didn't behave in his old environment.
It's interesting that they'll let people out because they don't think they're a danger, but you can't ever give 100%. They're not going to do that again.
If they do release him, I feel like there needs to be some kind of halfway home to introduce him back into the world, because he was so young when he went in. He doesn't know what life's like, not to mention all of the changes in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Think about pre-2000 and post-2000.
And now,
it's night and day. Yeah. Once the 2000s hit, the internet boom, it just took off.
Everything's so different.
It is.
It's not even the fact that it was an accident and he killed her or maybe put some of her mouth to keep her from screaming. He beat her and then stabbed her. That's very extreme.
That's very extreme and horrific. heartbreaking. And she was just trying to be kind.
Be nice to him.
Nice to him because he didn't have any friends is what it sounded like. And that's how
Because even if he hit her with a ball or a bat, whatever, and she was crying.
You can still come back from that.
Yeah.
Not that it's okay.
Like, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. Let's get you home. I'm so sorry this happened or whatever. No, instead, I'm going to then strangle you and stab you and beat you.
Well, because her house is right across the street and her mother had just gotten back from voting.
He took her inside.
Yeah, so her mom had just got home from voting, and the way I saw it was she was inside waiting for mom to come home. As soon as mom got home, she ran outside to play, and mom started cooking dinner.
Yeah.
She was not that far from just being able to get into her door and let her mom know that she was hurt, and instead, he pulled her into his house.
Yeah. I get, like, not wanting to get in trouble.
It just doesn't make sense.
I don't know. Like, usually kids that are that scared, though, typically do that. I didn't do it. I didn't do anything. She did that herself. Or they'd lie about not doing that, or I don't know how she hurt herself. I wasn't playing with her. Don't know.
Yeah, kids that are fearful of being punished for
like, she
what they do.
Came over, and I told her no, and she was tossing around and hit herself.
Yeah, he could have said anything.
Literally not.
But it almost sounds like, okay, how can I get out of this? They know it's me. She's under my bed. How can I get out of it? Let's just say this.
It was an accident, yeah. So
clearly it was not. And again, it might have been an accident in the beginning when they were throwing the ball and he threw it too hard. But what happened from that point forward, if that even happened, but what happened after that is not okay.
It's not an excuse.
It's not an accident.
No, not at all. And it's just so sad because I think a lot of parents now, they definitely do have a fear of their children even playing with neighbor kids.
Yeah, not a lot of kids, I think, play outside freely like they used to.
No.
For sure. So another thing that's disheartening is that her parents ended up divorcing after 25 years of marriage after this because the dad just shut down.
Yeah.
And he didn't want to talk about it. But the mom wanted to talk about it because she needed to process it. They ended up splitting up. And then her older sister, Jessie, actually still lives in the house. She doesn't want to leave the house, which the parents both moved out of the house, and she's an adult now, but to her, that's her home, and she had a lot of good memories before November 3rd, 1998, that she just wants to stay there so that she can remember how life was before with her sister.
Oh, that's so depressing.
Yeah, it's so sad.
It's a very sad story.
So what do you guys think? Have you heard of this case? Let us know in the comments below.